Hey guys, thanks for joining me here at www.rainwalker.us. I'm Rainwalker, and I'm here to explain to you what's going on at rainwalker.us. At this moment, I'm in huge need, but as you'll learn, I'm just going to use a positive attitude and dive right in. Thanks especially to those of you who are coming at my direct invitation. If your time is limited, I would really love it if you could just contribute using my PayPal donation buttons, just out of pity. If that's all you can manage, that's fine. If you are interested in listening to more of what I'm doing with my life and what I've done, then after watching this video, then please just go right to the mental health page and start watching the videos I've made available there. I've made a big effort to get a bunch of short videos out so that within half an hour or so you can have a good idea about the fruit of my life's work, which is the Rainwalker fundamental theory of human mental health. And by donating to me through my PayPal donation buttons, you're going to empower me to not only do things like pay rent, but actually to oversee my effort to implement the theory. So first we need to complete the theory, and then we need to experiment on it and to verify that my ideas are correct and useful, and then we'll need to implement it, which means bringing it onto the street level of therapy everywhere. So I want to point out that there's an interesting quote by Tony Robbins, and he says, "You don't get what you want in life; you get what you prepare for." And so I have prepared to advance and defend my theory at the expense of everything else in my life. And plenty of people, I think, criticize me for that, but I think it was the right thing to do. And the bottom line is that if I had a better path in life, maybe I would have gone to college or something and gotten a college degree to become credible, to start speaking about mental health, but that didn't happen. So I'm going to tell you how I came to my theory, and then we'll have to see whether you want to agree with my ideas or not, and whether you want to agree even with contributing to helping me get in contact with experts or not. When I was in sixth grade, on one of my first sort of dates, or pseudo dates, right? I went to see a movie with a girl, and she was a wonderful girl. She was very popular, and I think she had sort of better social behavior than I did. And there came to be a very sad part in the movie, and she was just crying uncontrollably. And I was sitting there right next to her doing nothing. And so this might seem like a fairly trivial story to you, but to me it was absolutely a life scar. And I knew, sitting there doing nothing next to her, that I was some kind of sociopath or something like that, that normally a person would have comforted her. And so the question is, why didn't I comfort her? And the answer I'm going to tell you is that being smart and even being around people with very normal, very desirable behavior wasn't enough to allow me to be a normal behavior, right? Okay, and the question is, why not? And this one question really gets at the very heart of my Rainwalker's fundamental theory of human mental health, and here's why. At the moment that the sad part of the movie came, I remember very distinctly what I was thinking. And what I was doing was I was thinking about what people should do and what people would do if they were in my place. And I was trying to think about when it should happen and what I should do exactly when. And as you can see, this just takes up all the time. Okay, and so let's just leave it there for a moment and just understand that I was thinking intellectually about what should have been a quick heart decision. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead forward in my life and talk about a story that I heard in college. Okay, and this is a story from Dr. Antonio Damasio in his very interesting, excellent book, Descartes' Error. And he tells a story about a person with brain damage in a very specific part of the brain. It's a part of the brain called the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, and Dr. Antonio Damasio has hypothesized, or I guess maybe proven by this time, that brain center is very important, maybe essential, in combining the contents of thought and cognition with contents of the emotional systems in the human brain. And this person who was missing the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, or had an injury there, had a lot of trouble making decisions. And so I've actually put a link in one of the mental health sub-pages to Dr. Damasio talking about this person. But the essence is that these people with the ventromedial prefrontal cortex damage had a lot of trouble making desirable financial decisions. They had a lot of trouble making any decision at all, resolving a decision, coming to a decision in a short amount of time. And they also had trouble behaving appropriately in public. So these people had physical brain damage that we read about in Dr. Damasio's book. And when I started reporting into a psychiatrist after dropping out of college the first time, I went through a brain scan, and the psychiatrist found nothing obviously wrong with the structure of my brain. Yet, I felt for sure that I had a big commonality in terms of my behavior with the people with physical brain damage. And so for a little while, I listened to the psychologist and the psychiatrist, and I took their medicines, and I tried to follow their recommendations. And sort of after 4 years, nothing changed. And even at the beginning, it was pretty clear they didn't know much about neuroscience, and they were sort of 20 years behind. And so I went looking on my own for an answer to my problems in time management and resolving decisions and behaving appropriately. And this mental health theory is what I found. So eventually I realized it's facial expressions, and we'll get into more about why that is. But that's on the mental health page here. But just as an introduction, let me point out that what happened in my life was that being facially expressive didn't work at first. Okay, and so after I realized in 2005 that being facially expressive was a key to human mental health and behavior, I was sort of trying to be facially expressive, and I felt on the inside anyway, like I was the Terminator trying to smile, like it was like, and it still didn't look right. Like my behavior was still wrong, and I sort of felt weird, and I don't know what people who were around me at that time would have said, but I felt weird. Now, I had actually given up on behaving right several years after that, and so in 2007, I ended up homeless on the streets of Washington, D.C., and in case you haven't been homeless, it's sort of easier to have strange behavior as a homeless person, if you haven't noticed. Okay, and so when I ended up homeless, that's when my personal breakthrough came, because at that point I could be facially expressive. I could move at a slower pace of behavior and speech, and I could sort of be more honest, to be honest with you, to be more sincere emotionally as I was talking. And so as I was sharing things about my life and listening to people share about their lives as a homeless person, then that's when I discovered what I now call vagal vulnerability. So that's kind of my story, and I just wanted to tell you that's where I'm coming from. This is the life experience which led to me having this huge conviction that I'm correct about this big so-called Rainwalker fundamental theory of mental health. And I guess the point is that you just got to watch more of the videos, but a friend of mine recommended that I offer some autobiographical information to you, and so that's what I'm doing as an introduction to the website. I can tell you now that just 2 months ago, having been in the homeless industries of New York City once again, that there's this massive implementation gap. So, I actually voted for a lot of Democrats for president, but I think that socialism is an absolute catastrophe because I've lived under it in New York City. And so while we do need to have a citizen safety net, what's more important and what is the centerpiece of my entire political service is to try to win for us, try to lead us to the victory of citizen participation. Okay, so let me just close by saying that, please go ahead and look at the mental health videos, but that I personally was one day, about 2 years ago, sitting in a waiting room for a homeless shelter, and there was a man or male there sitting next to me, and he was literally bashing his head against the wall in frustration. And it's hard now when I'm trying to be an upbeat person and I'm sort of smiling at you to really convey what that felt like. I mean, it was really incredible. It was incredibly awkward to be sitting there witnessing this guy bashing his head against the wall. And it wasn't as simple as you would think. Like I couldn't just sort of comfort him easily. Maybe that's a personal reason, but maybe it was a situational thing. But ultimately what I decided to do was I decided to put my arm around this guy, and to comfort him. And so I did, and he stopped smashing his head against the wall. And he still had major issues to deal with. He had huge depression going on. He was dealing with poverty, like all of us in the homeless industry were. He was also dealing with a relationship, destruction, basically. And so, his distress was real, but the fact that I was then empowered to comfort him in an appropriate way was an interesting watermark for me, because then I could look back and think about the time when I was kind of a sociopath sitting next to a girl who was crying, and I was sort of doing nothing, and I sort of came full circle. And so that's honestly what I hope that we can all do by working together to get this mental health theory of mine completed in the first place, and then verified using some experiments with real neuroscientists, and finally implemented on the street level of therapy. Thanks again for coming to rainwalker.us, and if you find that I'm adding value, or you just want me to be a champion for future value addition, either through my political service or through just this mental health theory, then please go ahead and use the donate PayPal buttons there on, I think, every page of my website. And if you could just donate $17.76, then that would keep the ball rolling. Okay, cheers. Thanks very much for coming. God bless you, and Rainwalker out.